Agents are a simple abstraction around state. Often in Elixir, there is a need to share or store state that must be accessed from different processes or by the same processes at different points in time. The agent module provides a basic server implementation that allows state to be retrieved and updated via a simple API. Imagine you want to show how many people are currently viewing a product page on your e-commerce site. You can use an agent to hold this count and increment it or decrement it as visitors arrive and leave the page. Let's go ahead and open up our cart server project that we used in our supervisors video. So I'm going to just CD to the desktop and CD into cart server. And then let's open that up in VS Code. And I'm just going to close all these tabs for now. Let's go ahead and create a new module. So new file. And we're going to just call this visitor tracker _ tracker.ex. And then def module here, def module. All right. And we need to use the behavior agent. So just like we did for GenServer or supervisors. So we need to use the behavior. So agent. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an agent for just keeping track of visitor count, right? So agents should only be used for like real simple tasks, and like a counter is a perfect example of it. You don't want to do any heavy lifting on an agent. To start an agent, it's the same thing as a supervisor and GenServer. So we're going to do def start _ link, and then in our do block, let's just do an IO puts so we know that it's starting, and we'll say visitor tracker starting ... and then underneath we'll just do our agent start link. And you can pass in a module, or you can pass in an anonymous function with the state that you're starting with. And in our case, we're going to do an anonymous function, and we don't have to do anything in our anonymous function. We're just going to pass in an empty map, and then end space end. There we go. And then you need the name of the agent. So our name is just going to be visitor tracker. Okay. We're doing an empty map because this will allow us to add keys for every product and just keep a simple count next to it. All right. So we can just now go ahead and create our add visitor, our remove visitor, and then our get visitor count. So we're just going to create 3 functions here. We'll just call it add. We don't need visitor. And we're going to pass in an item ID, and then do an end. And then we're going to create another one called remove, pass in an item ID, do an end. And then we're going to have a function that will return the count for us. So we'll do get count. We could say get count is good. Get count. And this will take an item ID and then do an end. So for the add, this is really easy. All we have to do is say agent dot update. And then we pass in our agent name, which is visitor _ tracker. And then we have to pass in an anonymous function and our state, which in our case is our counts map, right? So we're going to say fn and then counts, and then go into our anonymous function here. And now inside of our function, since it's a map, we want to update the key. So our item ID we're passing in, and then we want to just add 1 to whatever the count is. So we'll do map.update, and counts is our map. And then we're going to take our item ID as the key. Okay, so the way map.update works is basically if our item ID key doesn't exist, the very first item we want added, this is the default count. So it will add 1. Now, if it does exist, we're going to take our first parameter, which is the only parameter, and we're adding 1 to it. So if it's our first time tracking an item, it makes the default value 1. If this item is already there, it's going to take the value 1 and add 1 to it. So then it will become 2. And that is how map update works, okay?
Hi, I'm Jacob. My YouTube channel and podcast reach thousands of engaged Elixir developers every month. If you're looking to promote your developer tools, services, or job opportunities to a focused audience of Elixir professionals, head to elixirmentor.com and let's discuss sponsorship options.
And then we're going to do the same thing for remove, but opposite. So we're still going to do the agent.update. So I'm copying and pasting. And now, basically now, if it doesn't exist, we want to set it to 0 because that means it doesn't exist and we're leaving the page. And instead of adding 1, we want to subtract 1. So every time we're added to the page and we subtract from the page, okay? And then to get the count, to get our state from our agent, we can just say agent.get, pass in our visitor tracker name. And then inside of an anonymous function, we're going to have our counts map. And now what we can do is just return whatever value for the key that we're looking for. So we can do map.get, and we're searching through our counts map for the item ID. And then if the item ID doesn't exist, we just will return 0. All right. So this is pretty cool. This is like a really simple GenServer, right? And we don't have to listen for events or messages, or anything, but we can just update a simple state and keep track of it. So let's go ahead and save this. And if we pull up our terminal and let's go ahead and do IEX-S mix. And if we call our visitor tracker.start link, now our visitor tracker is going. And if we do visitor tracker add and we pass in, all right, so someone is looking at our Apple product page. There we go. So we get an OK back. So we know that count went up. So if we went to visitor tracker now get count for this product, for Apple, we should get a 1 back. There we go. So if we add a couple apples and then check the count again, now it's 3. And so now if we remove 1 for Apple, we get an OK, and then we check the count. Now we have 2 live visitors. So it's a super simple counting mechanism, which is cool, right? And then we could say add, just to show you that other things work, a knife. And then if we say get count for our knife page, we have 1 visitor there, and then we can still get count for our Apple page, and we have 2 visitors. So it's pretty cool. Agents provide a segregation between the client and the server APIs, very similar to GenServers. In particular, the functions passed as arguments to the calls to the agent functions are invoked inside the agent, so the server. This distinction is important because you may want to avoid expensive operations inside the agent, as they will effectively block the agent until the request is fulfilled. So that's what I was kind of saying earlier. You don't want to have the agent doing a lot of heavy lifting. Now, an agent is most commonly started under a supervision tree. So when we invoke use agent, it automatically defines a child spec, just like GenServers and supervisors. And so this allows us to start our agent directly under a supervisor. So let's go ahead and demonstrate adding this to our supervisor. And all we have to do is, like before, we need to have an argument here, right? So our start link needs to take a single argument, but we're not going to use it. So just leave an underscore there and then save this. And then we can jump over to our cart, to our shop supervisor. And underneath our cart supervisor here, we can just add our visitor tracker, just like that. And when we save it, when we go back to our IEX shell, we can, let's go ahead and restart our IEX shell. Now when I start our shop supervisor, it will kick off our cart supervisor and our visitor tracker. So I can say shop supervisor dot start link and then hit enter. And look at that. It starts our cart supervisor and our visitor tracker. So now we can still use our visitor tracker. So we can say visitor tracker, add item, Apple. Okay, great. And then we can say get count for Apple. We have 1. Awesome. And then we can also, since our cart supervisor started, we can still dynamically create carts like we did in our supervisor video, right? So if we go to our cart server dot start child, and then we can just pass in our name for cart 1, we can still dynamically create carts. So cart 1 is starting, which is really cool, right? And then we can do cart 2. So we just added our agent to our shop supervisor. And so now we have our agent, which is basically our user count. So we know how many users are visiting product pages, and we have access to it throughout our entire app just through its process name. This demonstrates how agents can be simple yet effective solution for managing shared state in a lightweight manner without the need for the more complex functionality that GenServers offer. It's a great way to encapsulate state changes and queries behind a simple API, making the code easier to understand and maintain. So I will see you guys in the next video.